So you just bought your Kent Trouvaille Mountain Bike and it's pretty good and pretty nice, but you know, if you really want to have that confidence to hit those trails quickly, you're going to need some upgrades. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the upgrades I'm making to my mountain bike. These aren't going to be all the upgrades you could make to a Kent Trouvaille, but they're going to be some really common sense ones that are fairly affordable and approachable. But of course, if this video does well and it's worth doing, I may end up doing some of those upgrades later down the line. And if you want to see that, be sure to like, subscribe. It really helps this channel grow and helps this video get seen on YouTube. And if there's anything in particular you want to see upgraded, be sure to leave a comment down below. So I have actually worked at a bike shop for a couple months, and while I don't claim to be the most practiced mechanic, I do think I know enough to make these upgrades. And I want to share with you my process and every step along the way. These are going to be some at-home upgrades, so my tools and my stands are going to be a little bit limited, but I think it will be very helpful for the viewer and those at home who want to upgrade their bike but don't necessarily have the full set of tools to do it. Alright, now let's talk about these upgrades, starting with new pedals. So I chose to go with these RaceFace Chester pedals. They're currently $34 on Amazon, and they're a fairly reputable brand that many mountain bikers like. They have these replaceable bolts, so when you wear them down, you can just buy a new set, replace them, and then you're good to go again. They're made out of nylon, so even if you scratch them or dent them, they won't look like they're paint chipped or anything like that, which is, I think, a plus. And of course, the bearing is high quality, very smooth, definitely a nice pedal. When I first did my original 2 mountain bike videos, which you can see up there and kind of on the screen there, I was told a lot of times to get good pedals because I was kind of coming off of them quite a bit. I think that'll help a lot with confidence and staying on the bike and staying secure as you're going up and down turns and up and down the hills. And from what you can see on the bike, the pedals that came with it are metal, and so they kind of have that paint chipping effect. They're kind of heavy, and the nubs on them aren't very sharp or significant and impactful for keeping your foot on the shoe. The next thing I'm gonna do, and I'm not entirely sure if this is a good idea, but I'm gonna shorten up the bars by about an inch. I think they're just quite a bit wide and quite large. And I think bringing it in just a little bit more, like an inch or so, will help keep me in between the trees on these courses, because those very tight turns in between trees, I would like a little more clearance, I think, and then I think it should help a little bit of the handling being just a little bit closer in. You'll have to let me know about what you think on that one. And then the last big upgrade I'm going to give this bike is hydraulic brakes. As recommended by Seth from Berm Peak, these are the Shimano GT500s you can find on Amazon for like 55 bucks. So they're a pretty good budget option, but quality hydraulic brakes. Much better for performance and modulation. They got a lot better control, and I think these ones are quite a bit closer into the grip, so you don't have to stretch your hand out as far and you don't have to apply as much force. You can really just use 1 or 2 fingers, so you can have a lot more control on the handle while braking, which I think is a very good idea. And the big thing with those I'm going to be showing is how to install them and how to bleed them. In his video, he goes over it like very quickly, so I want to really do that in depth and show the user how to install these from an at-home setup with a at-home kind of very cheap Amazon bike brake bleeding kit that's like 20 bucks or something like that. I think it was like $17.80 or something like that. All right, let's get this upgrade going. All right, so we have pretty much everything we're gonna need. We have an Allen key wrench set, a pedal wrench, our new components, a pipe cutter for adjusting the handlebars, and a measuring tape to measure about an inch on either side. Our bleed kit, which has got a lot of good stuff in it. I think the first thing we're gonna do, and it's gonna be the easiest thing to do, is just get these pedals on. All we have to do is remove the old pedals and install the new ones. All right, so the key to installing and removing pedals is to remember your directionality. On the right pedal, it will be standard thread, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and you can use a pedal wrench to loosen it. And then if you want, you can use an Allen key. Oftentimes they will have a nice Allen key slot on the back side of them. You're not spinning the pedal. You can just hand loosen it if you want to too. That's that. So the key to installing a new pedal is to look for a little R. There's a couple of them. There's one there and there's one there. And just make sure that is not the left pedal. If you do have the left pedal, you will cross thread and get your pedals locked in there, and you won't be able to get them out, and they won't be seated properly and they won't work properly either. So installing this, the key thing is to start it by hand Make sure you don't kind of cross thread them. You can backtrack a little bit to find the first thread. It should be really easy. If it's hard at all, you've not got it. If it's difficult, you've cross-threaded it. You should back up, try and find the thread again. Do not keep going if it's at all difficult. Then we can just use the Allen key, speed things up a little bit. And it really doesn't take too much torque to finish these out. That's pretty much all you need, right there. Don't even really need the pedal wrench. And if you've got grease, I would always recommend greasing your pedals and any thread you're ever doing on a bike. Just make sure so it doesn't lock up, and then wipe the extra grease away so it doesn't collect sediment and dirt and stuff. Same idea for the next one. The wheel will want to move on you as you apply that torque, so you can put a little block in front of it so it doesn't move on you as much. And just remember, for the left pedal, it's lefty tighty, righty loosey. So you're doing the opposite. And make sure to find that little L. There's a couple different spots with them on there, and make sure you don't cross thread it. If it's at all difficult, back out, try again. Always hand thread the first couple of threads. And there we go. These RaceFace Chesters are installed and looking good. And here are our old ones. They spin pretty nicely, but got a little bit of play in them, and they're quite a bit greasy and got sediment and dirt in there. All right, next we're gonna take an inch off of each end of the handlebars. We're gonna take a 3mm Allen key wrench, just loosen these up and slide them off the end. And here I just use the grips themselves to take out the bar ends. Just slide them off, pretty easy. And these are actually pretty good grips. So we just simply take our measuring tape, pretty easy, figure out where an inch is, do a little mark. We're gonna cut it anyways, doesn't matter too much. You can take a pencil, you can take anything really. And then you have a pipe cutter. Clamp it down, right where our mark is, tighten, twist until it comes off. I forgot this earlier, but you want to take a file and file down the sharp edges. Make sure it's nice and smooth, friendly. Then all you got to do is rinse and repeat for the other side. All right, now before we readjust where the handles go and the shifter goes, I'm going to actually replace the brakes with hydraulic ones. The first brake we're gonna do is this left one. It should be nice and easy. It goes straight to the front tire, so I don't have to take any of the components apart in order to install it. So this one's pretty easy. We got 5mm up top and down here at the brake, and then just 3mm for this cable housing. All right, so we need the original brake and the original hardware, but we're gonna open this guy up and see how he looks. So I've transferred the hardware from the old brake to the new brake so that it will mount correctly. Now these do come with a stopper in place so the calipers don't seat out of the piston well. In order to get rid of that, you need a pair of needle nose pliers. And you're gonna take the hairpin, straighten it, take it out, remove the spacer. I want to do that once the brake handle and this mounting point is secure on the bike. Take this out, then mount it directly onto the brake disc so there's no risk of the calipers becoming misseated and the brake becoming essentially useless. All right, now adjusting the caliper's location so it doesn't scrape on the rotor is gonna be a little trickier. You're gonna have to rotate the wheel and the rotor accordingly to get the caliper in a spot where it doesn't make those scraping noises. Right. This next bit is gonna be the really tricky bit. I have to detach the cable from the handle, which is fairly straightforward. But then I have to unroute it through the bike. It has internal routing, so I'm gonna have to take that out and then detach the caliper. Now, unfortunately, you are gonna have to clip the end here and then clip the two cable holders and replace them with 2 zip ties. This next bit isn't gonna be tricky. It's just gonna be straight up difficult. Because this bike has internal cable routing, I'm actually gonna route the hydraulic line from the handle to the bike and then to the caliper. So I'm gonna actually remove the hydraulic line from the caliper itself, install the caliper, install the handle, route the line, and then reconnect them. In order to disconnect them, I just have an 8mm wrench that actually came in my bleed kit. We're gonna have to bleed the lines anyways. Once we got this unsecure, just got a little vessel here, so any hydraulic fluid that leaks out doesn't get anywhere. But it's probably gonna be a pretty messy process anyways. Now it takes quite a bit of force to remove this. Just jostle it a little bit, and it comes out. And there is a couple drops of fluid in there. All right, let's install this on the bike, route the cable, and then reinstall the hydraulic line. All right, that was so much trouble. That was That was painful. The hydraulic nut to secure it to the caliper, it's 5/16 in diameter, so you have to take a bolt and expand that hole even larger. In order to get that larger, you have to disconnect the shifting cable. I still have to put the shifting cable back on. You have to route it and get it through down at the bottom here, which is a pain in the butt. And I broke my bar end insert. I need to get another one. Anyways, I'm gonna tidy this up. I've got the shifting cable back in and it's shifting the full range of motion. I can tune it later if I need to. Now to do the thing that is completely new to me, which is bleeding brake lines. I've seen it done. I've watched videos of how to do it, and I'm gonna follow one now. If you are wondering, I would thoroughly recommend watching the Park Tools videos. They're very instructional and very helpful to do anything on a bike. I've done the rear brakes and I think I've learned enough to explain it. First, we want to back out the lever and bring it forward so that you maximize the amount of reservoir space you can fill with fluid, and then you can adjust it back later because there's quite a bit of space that doesn't squeeze on the brake at the caliper level. On the caliper, you want to replace the brake pads with a spacer because if you get any hydraulic fluid on those brake pads, they're completely screwed. They do not work when they have oil on them. Now, following the Park Tools video, I've loaded a syringe with no air in it, and I have the reservoir up here open. We're gonna push hydraulic fluid up through the line and hopefully get rid of some bubbles along the way. And yes, I've gotten hydraulic fluid all over the place. Next, we attach a tube after closing and reopening this to get the fluid flowing downhill from the reservoir. Since I see no bubbles coming out, next thing I'm gonna do is open and close this caliper rapidly while building up pressure with the handle to shock any air bubbles in the caliper to come out. With that done, the last thing to do is to get any air out of the handle reservoir. And that's just done by kind of squeezing the lever and putting it in a couple different angles so the air has a chance to escape. And now all I gotta do is remove it and we're done. All right, let's take this for a little bit of a test ride and see how our upgrades work. So it is winter here in Michigan, but I did take the bike out my front yard and into the driveway and the neighborhood. I really just wanted to test how well it brakes and the handling of the new handlebars. The new pedals are great, of course. I didn't come off of them once, and they seem to be sticking quite well. I must admit these hydraulic brakes are much more powerful, and it's going to take some getting used to because I can bring the bike to a dead stop very quickly. I don't know why the front brake is squeaking quite so bad as it is, but it was doing that a little bit before, and now it just seems to be more powerful with the new more powerful brakes. Alright, so that's gonna about wrap it up. I would say this upgrade was fairly difficult. Mostly the routing of the hydraulic lines was very difficult, and I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you have prior experience and are willing to kind of take apart your whole bike in order to get it to work. I think upgrading the pedals makes a lot of sense and is probably the first thing you should do. It's also fairly affordable at just $34. Cutting down the bars by 1 inch on either side might have been a little bit too much. The bars feel a lot smaller now, certainly, and before they felt very large. So I think it's just something to get used to. Maybe I would take 1 inch total off, so a 1/2 inch on either side as opposed to a whole inch on either side. But otherwise, if you want to see me ride these on the trails after the weather warms up here in Michigan a little bit, kind of in the middle of winter, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.